Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the Retro Wrestling Room. I did tell you guys it's going to be a big one today. I did warn you guys. We have one of the most controversial figures, I'd say, in the history of wrestling. Some people love him, some people maybe not quite as much. But when he talks, everybody does listen. He was once a writer in the WWF. He was a writer in WCW. He was even once a WCW champion. We have the one, the only Vince Russo on the show today.
What is going on, bro? Bro, here's the first thing I've got to ask you, mate.
Yeah.
What do we call a haircut like that? What is that called? Is there a name for that? What do we call that, man?
I think it's like a 3-in-1, I guess.
Well, a 3-in-1. Explain that to me. What is a 3-in-1?
I kind of got a bit of the side bits going, but yeah, different way. Bit of the side bits going there, a little bit longer at the back, bit of a spike on top.
Let me see the other side. Turn the other side. Let me see the other
right.
side. Wow. Okay, so you got a little shave, you got a little spike, and you got a little growth in the back. I like it, man. I like the 3-in-1. Very nice.
Thank you very, very much.
Yes.
Hey, how's it going, my man?
It's going good, man. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. We're going to try and cram in as much as possible. I know you're a very busy man. And I was going to say this at the end, but I'll say it now. It's going to be kind of hard to kind of summarize your whole career in such a short space of time. You know, you've had this podcast now for so many years. I can't remember when you first started. It's got to be at least 6 years ago, something like that.
It's over 10, bro. It's
wow.
been over. Yeah, I've been podcasting now over a decade. I left TNA in 2012, and I started podcasting shortly after that.
Man, time flies. I didn't even realize it was quite that long. But
Yeah.
To try and cram all your career into one when you've had the podcast for over 10 years and you're still managing to touch on new subjects, it's not going to be the easiest thing. But let's throw it way back. How much of a fan of wrestling were you when you were growing up?
You know, bro, it's funny because I was definitely a fan, but I would not categorize myself as a mark. I was definitely not a mark. I mean, I enjoyed wrestling like I enjoyed baseball, like I enjoyed, movies, like I enjoyed television. It was something I honestly enjoyed, but I did not have this obsessive love for it. It was just something that I really enjoyed watching.
Would you say like things like music? Because I know you're a big collector of music. Was that kind of like your main your main passion at that time?
Yeah, probably that, bro. And I mean, I'm a big baseball fan, man. I love baseball. I've been following baseball, God, bro, since I'm about, God, 8 years old. That's probably my number one passion, especially growing up too, because I was still playing baseball and everything,
Right.
But no question about it, man. I was a fan of wrestling because of the entertainment aspect of it, but I was never ever obsessed with professional wrestling.
You did have the radio show though,
Hmm.
before you even started in the WWE. I think I read that you had that for about a year. What was that experience like? How did you actually get into the radio show?
Yeah, bro, I'll be honest with you. Number one, I paid for airtime
Right.
because what was going on at the time was I owned a couple of video businesses, and Blockbuster was putting everybody out of business. So I had to find something else to do. So I was advertising and sponsoring a wrestling radio show, and I thought, you know what, this may be a good opportunity to get my foot in the door of another profession, because I knew my video stores were going to be done.
Hmm.
And I got to tell you, man, I fell in love with radio. It's not that, my show was called Vicious Vincent's World of Wrestling. It was definitely a wrestling show, but I really fell in love with the radio aspect of it. And after that, man, I really wanted to do radio. That's why I love podcasting so much. Obviously it's the next best thing. But I really got a love for radio when I started doing that show. More radio than wrestling. It was really radio.
There's that old story that you actually sent a letter to Linda McMahon, and that's how you first got your job. How did you sell yourself in that letter? Like
Yeah, no,
what was
yeah,
entailed in it?
I just told her. I told her what I'm doing. I said, "Listen, my name is Vince Russo. I'm doing a radio show out here on Long Island." I told her I'm funding my own show. I literally said to her, "I'm running out of money. I don't know how long I can go. All I'm looking for is an opportunity." And I told her about my background. Obviously, I had a degree in journalism and whatnot. I had no idea Linda was. In charge of the magazine. I had no idea. But when she saw I was doing the wrestling radio show, and then she saw I had a degree in writing and journalism, she gave me an opportunity to freelance on the WWF magazine. And that's really how I started, man. I would write one or two stories for the WWF magazine a month. They paid me $150 a story. And the editor position then opened up, and I applied for it, and I got it, and that's how I got in.
So when you became the editor of the magazine, and later on, I think you were, was it just the WWF magazine, or did you then move to the Raw magazine as well?
No, I started the Raw magazine. It was
Right, okay.
just the WWF magazine, and then we added the Raw magazine.
That's
so
right.
It was both. Yeah.
You've always been known as somebody who kind of pushed the envelope a bit in the kayfabe sense. You were trying to see how far you could actually push it, which obviously started with the magazine, and then obviously when you became the booker and everything. Did you find it easier or harder to do it when it was in the magazine, or when you actually became the writer?
Well, it was probably harder in the magazine because I used to really give my opinion, and I used to give my opinion under like fictitious names. But the reality of it was really my opinion.
Right.
And, I got away with it by saying, "What are you talking about? It's a character. I'm just playing a character. I don't really mean it." So it was a little tricky, and I could have gotten myself in trouble. So I would say there was a little bit more risk involved with the magazine.
I mean, we kind of mentioned at that time it was a very, very different landscape within WWF at the time. We had some of the craziest characters that you can remember. We obviously had Who. We had people like Mantar. It was just so different. How did you keep? How did you keep your enjoyment at that time? How hard was it for
I
you?
didn't. I hated it, bro. I hated it. And it was so hard for me because I was working in that office and I hated the product. I absolutely hated it. And I was pretty vocal about it. I mean, I was friends with Bruce Pritchard, and Bruce was booking at the time. Him and Cornette were doing that stuff, and I was just very, very, very critical of the product. As a matter of fact, we're doing this stuff, and the WCW started doing NWO, and I was like, "Shoot, man, that's what I want to be doing." And I actually was able to get Jeff Jarrett and Kevin Nash to tell Eric Bischoff about me, and Eric actually called me. And then, Eric said, "I'll get back to you," which he never did. And, bro, history could have been completely different if Eric would have called me back. They would have given me a job at WCW, because the Attitude Era would have never happened at the WWE. They would have never, ever done that on their own. So it was really interesting because it was kind of before we overtook WCW. I kind of gave Eric the opportunity to hire me, and I never heard back from him. And, in just a matter of literally weeks, I was then writing Raw.
I mean, you were around for obviously a lot. It's WrestleMania season, obviously, at the moment now. You were around for a lot of the WrestleManias before you became the main writer, but the two that are kind of associated with you are probably 14 and 15.
Mm-hmm.
14 was kind of, well, they very, even though they were so close, they're obviously only a year apart, they were so different in the landscape of wrestling, because at WrestleMania 14, obviously this was only a few months out from the Montreal screw job. Bret had gone, were the biggest stars in the company. We obviously know at the end of this show, then Shawn was gone for a long time. We had to really build new stars for this show, and obviously Austin and The Rock, they were two of the ones that really took off, especially after this show. What was it like for you booking this show, when you were writing, going into this show?
It was, bro, it was always challenging because here's what people don't understand, bro. Obviously, I was very successful and people like to take their shots. So what they don't understand, bro, because you really have to understand writing to understand what I'm going to say. A lot of people will always say, oh, well, of course he was successful. Look at who he had on the roster. He had The Rock and he had Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he had this one and he had that. Well, first of all, before they became The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, they were Rocky Maivia and the Ringmaster. Okay, so they were there. They were there before I started writing. But here's what people don't understand: when you have talent that's that good, okay, that good. I'm talking Rock, Austin, Taker, Mick, DX. When you have talent that's good, bro, there is so much pressure on you to give them good material. You can't give Austin a shitty script. You can't give Taker a shitty script. My writing had to match their greatness as performers. And bro, perfect case in point is everybody can see how great Bray Wyatt was. Right. Bro, they could not write up to Bray's greatness. So instead of raising the bar with Bray had to lower himself because of the material he was given. And that's what I'm talking about, man. Every single week, I had to give Austin and Rock something that was better than the week before, because the idea was to keep raising that bar. And that's what people don't understand. Bro, you can have the greatest talent in the world. If you don't give them a good script and if you don't give them good dialogue and a good character, it doesn't matter. Bro, I bring this up all the time. Robert De Niro is a great actor, okay? Bro, Robert De Niro was in Rocky and Bullwinkle, and that movie sucked. So that goes to show you right there, like De Niro on his own could not have turned that into a good movie. The script sucked. So that's what people don't understand, bro. You can have the greatest performers in the world. If you're not capable of giving them good material, they're going to be at the middle of the pack. And that's where I feel like everybody is at the WWE today.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because, like I mentioned, like Bret had just gone. We often hear about when he went to WCW and the whole Starrcade incident, and a lot of people say he fumbled that. What was the attitude like in WWF at that time when he went to Starrcade, when they fumbled his debut, they didn't give Sting the title belt in the correct way? It was all a big mess. What was the attitude like in the WWF when you were seeing that? Because at that time, WCW were the number one brand.
Yeah, bro, I'll be honest with you. I was so busy writing our shows, I wasn't paying attention to that. I mean, the only reason, I was watching that NWO stuff was for a couple of reasons. Number one, I wasn't the head writer yet. And number two, it was really, really good. The beginning, bro, Hall, Nash, and Hogan was really, really good. Bro, once I started, once I was the head writer with the WWE, I never watched Nitro because there just wasn't enough time to, bro. My hands were full with writing all our shows every week, and I just never really watched the product, man.
When cause like obviously for that main event in WrestleMania 14, we brought in Mike Tyson. How long before did you know that he was going to come in and be the enforcer within that main event?
Bro, probably not that long before, maybe 6 weeks, But that was a funny thing, bro. Like Vince kind of wanted to bring him in as a baby face, and the reason being is because at the time, Tyson was barred from pay-per-view because he had
That's
bit
right.
Holyfield's ear. So Vince wanted to try to help his reputation by bringing him as a babyface. And I said to Vince, I said, bro, everybody's gonna think he's coming in as a babyface.
Mm.
I said, bro, bring him in as a heel. Bring him in, let him join DX. And Vince said to me, he goes, but Vince, I told Mike, part of the deal was we were going to try to change the bad reputation that he had gotten in boxing. And I'm like, Vince, that's fine. We'll do that. We'll just flip him at WrestleMania. That's all you have to do, man. Just flip him at WrestleMania. But the build to WrestleMania, make him a baby face because people are going to want to see him and freaking Austin. So tease him in Austin and then just flip them at WrestleMania and you accomplish what you wanted to accomplish. And that's exactly what we did.
On the show as well, we had Owen Hart versus Triple H, the European title. When Owen Hart, say after the Montreal Screwjob, when Owen Hart came back, he made that grand return at the December pay-per-view. He attacked Shawn. Then he was in the No Way Out Texas match in the February of that year. I think a lot of people thought, right, that's kind of a story now. Him versus Shawn could be a main event feud going in because it kind of like wrote itself. Was there ever a plan to kind of try and elevate Owen up the card? Or because it looked like he was going to be Austin for the title, Austin for the title, that kind of overstepped that?
Yeah, bro, we always wanted to elevate Owen because, he was really one of the great ones, man. Not just in the ring, as a human being. Bro, I swear to God, Owen may be the only wrestler that I know that everybody liked. Bro, like there's always somebody that does. Well, Austin didn't like Owen, but that had to do with him almost crippling Austin. That had nothing to do with the type of person Owen was,
Right.
But he was so beloved that we always wanted to elevate him. Bro, I think what happened during that time is, bro, Owen was so charismatic and so funny and so lovable and such a great entertainer. It was hard to buy him as a heel, bro. Like it was just really hard to buy him as a heel. And we really, really tried. I know I did, bro. But man, it just wasn't clicking because that's really just wasn't who he was.
Mm. And you always in your booking, I think something that I always think is a positive. You will always take their character and then turn it up to 10. And I think that's the best way because everything becomes so natural then. You're not trying to force something. So like you said with Owen, he's a good guy. All right, he did cause a lot of trouble from the stories I've heard, but
yeah,
that doesn't make him a bad guy.
Right, and that's why the blue blazer fit. Owen was a prankster. He was always pulling pranks, and to come out under a mask and then say it wasn't him, he didn't know who it was. I mean, that's funny and freaking entertaining, man. And I thought he pulled off that great, putting him and Jeff together as a team. I think that really worked. But it was just really hard to buy him as a badass because he's not. I mean, he just wasn't.
The next year, then WrestleMania 15. Like I said, the vibe was very different because the WWF now had regained that number one spot. Going into that show, was there a different atmosphere backstage because you'd kind of clawed back that number one spot?
Bro, I don't think it really had to do with the number one spot, but the boys are always happy when they're making money. And bro,
Right.
during that time, everybody was making money, man. Everybody in that locker room was making money. And bro, when they're making money, they're happy. So it wasn't really about becoming number one again. It really wasn't about that. It was just everybody, was into it. Everybody believed it. Everybody was making money. Therefore, everybody was happy.
What are some of your favorite memories from that show?
Which one?
WrestleMania 15.
Is that was that Austin and Sean?
Austin Rock, the first time
Austin
they
Rock.
fought.
Bro, I swear, like everybody finds this hard to believe, but bro, like WrestleManias and shows like that never stood out to me because you're writing a show every single week. So what happens is like something like WrestleMania, man, it just really turns out to be another show because, my emphasis is the next day because now you're starting a new chapter on Raw the next day. So like in my mind, before WrestleMania starts, it's already over. It's finished. I know what
Right.
the finishes are. I know where we're going. So now I'm really concentrating on the TVs after WrestleMania. So I swear, man, believe it or not, WrestleManias were really just showing up for another show.
Well, of course, because you've got less. When that final bell rings, you've got less than 24 hours to then write Monday Night Raw.
Well, it's already written, bro. But I mean, you're fine tuning and you're constantly working on it all the time. But yeah, you really don't have time to stop and smell the roses, man. You really don't.
When, like I said, that main event, Rock versus Austin, that was the first time that they'd really fought on that level. The main event scene. What were some of the similarities and differences when you were writing for those two?
Wow. There were a lot of differences and similarities. I think what happened to Steve is, bro, he achieved success as Stone Cold Steve Austin so quickly that he was afraid he was going to lose it just as fast. So he was very, 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 very paranoid. And when you would write with him for him, he would overanalyze it sometimes to the point of like, finding a problem just to find a problem because he was
Right.
overanalyzing everything. And I understood why. I totally got it. I totally understood it. But I used to, have to say, no, Steve, this is good for you. And this is why. And he never fought me on anything. He would eventually wind up going pretty much with everything. Rock, on the other hand, was just so freaking smart, where he would always take what I wrote and, he would always add, his little ideas to it, his little catchphrases to it. He would always take the material and always find a way to make the material better. So it was really, man, it was great working with both of those guys, but it was definitely a different experience working with them individually.
I heard you say recently on a podcast, I think it was a few months ago now, and it's something that I've always said, and they don't get enough credit in the build up. Um, Two people who were very instrumental in helping The Rock and Austin get to that level. For Stone Cold Steve Austin, Savio Vega,
Mm-hmm.
and for The Rock, Ken Shamrock. You
Mm-hmm.
know what? How big of not an influence? Sorry. How important were they to the building of those two characters for you?
Oh, bro, they were crucial, and I think both of those guys would tell you that without a shadow of a doubt. They were crucial. for two different reasons. I think number one, when it came to, Rock and Shamrock, like that was really Rock's first big angle.
Yeah.
And Ken Shamrock, bro, was such a believable guy. And the two of them really worked magic together. And when Rock got over a guy like Shamrock, it was like, holy crap, this guy's for real. Austin, on the other hand, I think really honed and crafted his work through Savio, man. They used to have like some 15-minute, 20-minute matches that were off the charts. And it really, really honed Austin. And I think both of those guys would tell you, without those two individuals, their careers might have been completely different, man.
We're so used to now being used to having 2-night WrestleManias.
Ugh.
What would it have been like in the Attitude Era with the
It would
roster?
have never happened. It would have never happened because I would have told Vince he was crazy and out of his mind. It would have never, ever, ever happened. Back then, bro, it wasn't all about greed. It really wasn't all about greed. It was all about the best product and just making sure we were absolutely putting the best show out there. Now, bro, it's just all about the money grab. It's just all about the money. I mean, we're seeing WrestleMania isn't even sold out because of the price of these tickets. And it's really, really sad, bro, because they've literally priced out families, fathers and sons. And it's freaking sad because to me, that's not what wrestling should be.
Like we were actually planning on going this year because I've got a big birthday coming up this year, so we were going to go to WrestleMania, but it's just so expensive. We can't justify it.
Yeah, I don't blame you, bro. I agree with you 1000%. No way in the world would I pay that amount of money.
Your I guess some people would say like your magnum opus in the WWF for booking wise of a show, especially, was Survivor Series '98, the Deadly Games tournament. What was it like booking that? How much in advance had you planned most of the encounters and the matches in that tournament?
Yeah, no, that was my shining moment because we did plan for like months in advance. We knew Rock was going to turn months in advance. And that's why, bro, because again, it all goes back to greed and it all goes back to money. You'll never see anything like that in wrestling again. And the reason is because, bro, they have so much content now. They just need to fill the page every week. They don't have the time to come up with creative angles like this and angles 2 months in advance. They've got so many shows, bro, and they've got so many masters they've got to please, from Peacock to Netflix to USA Network to, NXT, the Legend Show. They are churning out so much content. They don't have the time, bro, to make it good content. And that's why you'll never, ever, ever see anything like that again, bro, because we really took the time to plan that out and plot it out. And you just can't book in today's landscape like that.
The Rock was actually starting to get cheered, by the crowd leading into that main event. And I've heard you say before, it wasn't through the booking. It was just, that was the crowd's reaction. They were like getting used to his charisma and his cockiness, and it became something that they really enjoyed. So when that actual turn happened at the end, was that kind of like, was it like a stroke of magic that kind of happened in that moment? Or, had you planned, if the crowd hadn't latched onto him so much, trying to turn him babyface, would it have had the same effect, maybe?
I think it would have, man, because of the way it was written. Like nobody saw it coming. They nobody saw that coming. And then I remember, I think the next show, Mr. McMahon went back and showed all the things leading up to it, that they were in cahoots the whole time. And people were like, oh shit, how did we not see that? So I just think, again, it's the way it was written that it just caught everybody off guard.
You then joined WCW not too long after, really. It was the next year, 1999. You had the unenviable task of trying to, well, let's put it this way. When you took over WWF as the main writer, WCW was up here, say W, trying to match the camera there, slightly below. And then you had turned it round with the booking. You then had the unenviable task of trying to almost catch yourself back up with a completely different product. And like you said, you weren't used to that product again then. How long did it almost take you to get used to the product, get used to who was on the roster and their characters? And how big of a task was it for you, feeling like, I've done all this work, built all these people up, and now I've kind of got to start again and do it with a whole new crew?
Well, bro, I mean, I love the fact that it was a new challenge. I mean, I loved it. That was very, very appealing to me. The problem was because there was such politics involved in WCW, I never got the opportunity to do my thing. You know, me and Ed had a game plan that we had to tear down the old foundation. We had to rebuild a new one. We knew that was going to take 6 months. When you look at our work the first 3 months, that's exactly what we were doing. Everything was going to plan. And then, politics, got involved. And, after 3 months, I was sitting home. So the reality of the situation is they never really allowed me the time needed. I made it clear to them when we were in the hiring process of how long it was going to take. This is how we were going to do it. This is the game plan. But it took 3 months for the politics of WCW to just tear all of that down. And that's really sad, bro, because we never really got to see where it would have went. And that sucks, man. I don't have any regrets about going to WCW at all. People wish I had regrets. They wish I would say I made a mistake. Bro, Vince McMahon told me to hire a nanny to watch my kids. F you, bro. I don't want to work for you. Okay. So I don't regret that one bit. What I do regret is they didn't give me the time to complete the plan that I laid out to them prior to them hiring me. So we never really got to see what the potential could have been if WCW could have gotten back in the game. And, if we would have been allowed the 6 months, who knows what would have happened. But we were never allowed it. And, the rest is just history.
When you joined WCW, we started to see you become more of an on-screen persona as well. Was that by design, or was that kind of like a necessity that you kind of felt like you had to by that point?
Yeah, it was kind of that, bro, and that is something I regret. But what happened, bro, was, like I said, I made it clear to them when they hired me. We're not going to get the ratings overnight. It does not work that way. It's week after week after week after week of good shows. I mean, it could take a year. It's not going to happen overnight. I made it clear. And soon as I started, bro, they wanted it to happen overnight. And they were putting such pressure on me that they drove me to the point of saying, you know what, bro, F this. You want ratings? I'll go out there and I'll get ratings myself. Literally, that's how I felt. And, I wish I wouldn't have done that, bro, because quite frankly, I didn't enjoy it. I never enjoyed being an on-air character, number one. Number two, it really took away from the work I did enjoy, and that was the writing and that was the producing. You can't do both, man. You can't do both. And if I had to do that all over again, I would have never gotten back in the ring. But they just drove me to the point of like, okay, bro, F you. You want ratings tomorrow? I'll go out there and I'll do it. I'll do it my freaking self. I mean, literally, that's the truth.
One of the things that you're known for, Either good or bad, depends which way you look at it. The Bash at the Beach 2000 incident, and people always talk about this. There's been a Dark Side of the Ring episode on it. I think that was an hour long. Leading into that night, obviously, there's been disagreements on what was agreed, what wasn't agreed, so and so, so and so. Could you share some insight from your opinion? What was going to happen on that night, and kind of how things kind of got twisted along the way?
Well, see, here's the problem. Hulk had to approve the creative, okay? And before we left to go to Bash of the Beach, Hulk had approved the creative. He approved it through Johnny Ace. He approved the script. So now I show up at Bash at the Beach, and we're about 2 hours before the show, and Eric Bischoff comes up to me and says, "You better go talk to Hulk because he's not going to do what was written." And I'm like, what are you talking about? He agreed to that before we even left Atlanta. So now I'm completely caught off guard 2 hours before the show. So we go in the room, and Hulk's pitching his idea to me, and it's clear he wants to leave the building with the title. And bro, you got to understand, Hulk wants to leave the building with the title because Hulk got paid depending on how many times he was on television. So in Hulk's mind, if I'm the champion, then I got to be on TV every week and they got to pay me. Okay, I understand that, bro. I know what he's thinking. But in the meantime, we had already decided Booker T was going to win the championship. So I then laid out a story to Eric and Hulk. They were both in the trailer, and it's the exact story you saw on television. Everything that happened out in that ring that night, they were 100% on board with. The only one who I did not smarten up was Jeff Jarrett. Jeff Jarrett did not know this was a work.
All right.
Hulk, Eric, myself, we were all on the same page. What happened was Hulk went home back to Tampa, wherever he lived. He got on social media, and everybody believed it. So Hulk's sitting there reading, "Oh, somebody finally put Hogan in his place. Russo got over on Hogan." He's reading all this shit, and it's just eating away at his ego. So the next thing you know, he's suing me for defamation of character because him and Eric had no idea of bullshit, bro. They're liars. They knew everything that was going to happen. We were all on the same page. Hogan's ego got hurt because people believed it and people thought I made him look bad. And thus he attempted to sue me for defamation of character, where he was literally laughed out of court, not once but twice.
Did his reaction after the show kind of surprise you, or did you?
No, bro. I'll tell you why it didn't surprise me. I'll tell you why it didn't surprise me. Because part of it was my fault. After I pitched everything to Hogan, Hogan said, "Bro, that's a great idea. Then Booker will have a belt. I'll have a belt, and we could do something with me and Booker." And I said to Hulk, "Hulk, let's get through tonight. As soon as I get back to Atlanta, as soon as TV is over, I will call you and we will discuss where we go from here." Bro, I had every intention in the world of calling Hulk. Every intention. I would not tell him that if I wasn't going to call him. So what happened, bro, was I got back to Atlanta. Brad Siegel called me in his office, said, "Vince, what happened?" I explained everything to Brad Siegel. Brad said to me, "How did you leave it with Hulk?" And I said, "Brad, I told him I was going to call him and we would talk about where we go from here." And Brad Siegel, who was running TBS and TNT at the time, he was the boss. He said to me, "Vince, You cannot call Hulk because we can't afford to put him on television. And because my boss told me that, I didn't call Hulk. So now the fact that Hulk thought, the people believed it, and now because I told him I was going to call him and I didn't call him based on what Brad Siegel said, then the lawsuit came. So I was not surprised. I was not surprised at all by it.
Unbelievably, later on in WCW, you actually won the WCW World Title in a fluke incident when you were speared through the cage. When you won that title, was there any like clapback from the wrestlers, or was everybody kind of on the same page and they saw it as a good thing?
Yeah, bro, you gotta understand, like people have very, very short memories, man. We taped not we did Nitro on Monday, and then I think we taped Thunder on Tuesday. Okay. So bro, I won the title Monday, like you said, on a fluke where Goldberg almost killed me, spearing me through that cage. Bro, the very next night I relinquished the title.
Yeah.
The next day. So in other words, when you came back to Nitro that next week, I had already relinquished the title. So people, the shit that people have made out of that over the years, when on the very next day I relinquished the title, is just absolutely ridiculous and a joke. And that's why, like, if people that have an issue with that, bro, I can't even take you seriously. If Vince Russo would have had a title run, okay, bro, I understand. But to give it up the very next day, bro, give me a freaking break. Come on.
I know a lot of people do talk about it as if you had this massive run and it was like a reign of
Exactly.
terror afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You suffered a real life bad concussion after it, and I wanted to ask you about this because I suffered a bad concussion a few years ago as well, and like you, I suffered from post-concussion syndrome as well. What was it like for you, kind of getting used to that, and what were the symptoms that you had when you had that?
It was horrible, bro. It was horrible. I would say that the two worst symptoms I have, and bro, like I swear to God, listen, man, I'm not a wrestler. I've never had neck injuries and back injuries and stuff like that. Thank God I've never had anything like that. But I gotta tell you, bro, vertigo is the worst thing in the world, man.
Yeah.
I swear, bro, seriously, if somebody said to me, Vince, either you can have vertigo for an hour or we bust your arm. I swear to God, I'd say bust my arm. Like vertigo is horrible. The sense of being dizzy and room spinning. Oh my God, like I think about it and it makes me nauseous. So there was bouts of vertigo and bro, deep that bouts of depression. Dark, dark, dark depression. And man, bro, it had a big influence on my life back then.
Like even for me, it really affected my speech at the time. It was weird because I was trying to talk and it was working in my head. I knew what the next word was meant to be, but it just wasn't coming out.
Bro, I swear to God, I know exactly what you're saying because when I suffered those concussions, bro, I never been as sharp since. And it's exactly what
right,
you're
yeah.
saying. I know the words are in my head, but they're out of sync with I know exactly what you're saying. I was never as sharp as I was, bro, prior to the concussions. And like, Jeff Jarrett, who was very, very close to me. Like I remember having a conversation with him once, and he goes, "I know." He goes, "I'm around you enough that I can tell you're not the same person." So, brother, I understand completely what you mean.
Um, when people talk about Russoisms online, they talk about swerves and things like that. But for me, one of the main things that I always associate to Vince Russo's booking style is that you never rested, you never went back to the old guard. That was never your plan. So in WWE, we had people like, we had storylines for D'Lo Brown, for Crash Holly, for these type of wrestlers. Even in WCW, it was Booker T we were trying to push up the card, Vampiro. Why do you think people don't focus on that side of your booking?
Because, bro, those people are more wrestling driven than character driven. Bro,
Right.
I'm an entertainment guy. I am the wrestling is fake. Okay, bro. I know nobody's winning and losing these matches. Everybody knows that. Okay, the wrestling is fake. So I am an entertainment guy, bro. I am a storyline guy. I am a character guy. I learned that growing up and watching Vince McMahon Sr. That's where I watched that. The WWF was entertainment. You were not tuning in to watch great freaking matches. George the Animal Steel was not a great freaking wrestler. Chief J Strongbow was not a great freaking wrestler. You watched that because of the show. So that's where the heat with me comes, bro. The Vince Russo fans aren't the wrestling marks that are online. The Vince Russo fans are the casual wrestling fans, the casual television viewers who unfortunately no longer watch wrestling. So I constantly have to deal with on a daily basis, wrestling marks who somehow along the way have convinced themselves that wrestling is real. Bro, if Dave Meltzer is giving fake wrestling matches a star rating, he has convinced himself that wrestling is real. When you listen to these dirt sheet shows, when you listen to them, they're talking like it's real. They're talking about the matches like it's real. And bro, that's not how you bring the masses to watch wrestling. You bring the masses through entertainment. And that's what they've gotten completely away from, man.
Like I said, like those storylines for like a D'Lo or a Crash Holly, it was almost as if, well, you can obviously collaborate this, or corroborate this, sorry, from the top to the very, very bottom, everybody had a storyline. They may have been interlinked, but everybody had their own vision and storyline.
Bro, you know what it was? It was like here's what it was. I look at Jim Ross, who was head of talent relations, as Jim Ross was the general manager. Jim Ross put together this roster. Now, I could tell you one thing about Jim Ross, bro. First of all, one of the least political guys I ever had to work with in the wrestling business. If Jim Ross had something to say to you, he said it to you. And I'll always respect him for that. Number two, Jim Ross never played favorites. If your name was on that roster, you earned the spot on the roster. Jim Ross did not sign his favorites. So in other words, when Jim Ross would hand this roster to me, I knew that every single person on that roster earned their spot. They deserved to be on that roster. So now it was up to me to aid them and help them in every single way get over to their complete maximum. That was my job, to aid them to get over. And that's why, bro, whether you were on the top of the card, the middle of the card, or the main eventer, I didn't care. You were on the roster. You earned the spot on the roster. And now it is my job to help get you over. Bro, I watch wrestling today, and there's this guy's that guy's friend. This guy's Triple H's favorite. And you know how you know? because a casual fan like me watches the show, and when I have to ask the question, why is so-and-so on this show? You know he's somebody's favorite. That's why he's on that show. Bro, JR never, ever, ever played that game. And that's why he was so great at his job in talent relations.
We always joke on this channel that we're kind of the most positive wrestling channel out there because we always try and see the best sides of things. I know you have a few run-ins, internet trolls, but forget about those. Or disagreements, say, with somebody like a Dave Meltzer or a Tony Khan. Those two in particular, what positives would you say that both of those offer the wrestling world?
Bro, I'll be honest with you. I don't think Dave Meltzer has any positives whatsoever. I really don't. Bro, I got a real problem with people that are full of themselves. Dave Meltzer is full of himself. Dave Meltzer will never, ever say, I was wrong. Never. Bro, I first met Dave Meltzer, bro, in 1991. That's how long I've known this dude. He will never say he's wrong. He's full of himself. He's got an attitude. He's got a chip on his shoulder. I don't like people like that. Bro, Tony Khan, on the other hand, people mistake me. I don't dislike Tony Khan at all. At all, bro. At all. Number one, bro, I talk to people in AEW. Tony Khan is beloved. They freaking love Tony Khan, bro. They love him. The boys love Tony Khan. Number two, bro, I am such a sucker for characters. Totally. I get such a kick out of Tony Khan, bro, with these scrums and these interviews. Bro, Tony Khan lends so much content to my podcast. Bro, I swear to God, if Tony Khan ever went away, it would be a huge loss to the podcast. So I look at the dude as a character, and he's very entertaining. The boys love him. Bro, here's the problem with Tony Khan and Triple H. They're writing a show that they like. Bro, it's not about what you like. No, nobody cares what you like. It's what the masses like. And bro, you get ratings every single week, and the ratings tell you what they're watching and what they're not watching. It's crystal clear. So when you're writing for the masses, you're going to give them more of what they want, and you're going to take away what they don't want. Just by doing that, bro, the audience is going to grow and grow and grow and grow. But the problem is you got two bookers that are writing shows that they like and they think are good. It's got nothing to do with that, bro. But that does not make me dislike Tony Khan at all. Bro, I swear to God, bro, if Tony had a sense of humor, I'm not kidding you. I would love to meet this guy. I would. I don't, bro. But again, let me clarify this. I don't want to be hired. I'm not looking for a job. That would be the last thing in the freaking world, bro. I'm not getting on a plane every week, anytime soon. Trust me. I would love to have a conversation with that guy. I really, really would. But I'm sure he takes a lot of things I say really, really, really seriously. And I got to be honest with you, bro. I have not watched the product in 4.5 years. So I never bury the AEW product. I don't watch it. I can't bury something I don't watch. Mm-hmm. So I never, ever, ever bury the AEW product. But yeah, bro, I don't dislike Tony Khan in any way, shape, or form.
Vince, I know you're a very busy man. We're going to have to let you go very shortly. But before you go, if you had to pick... Well, we said that Survivor Series 98 was your magnum opus in WWF. Do you think you managed to create anything that you'd consider your magnum opus within WCW?
Nah, just because I didn't have the time, man. I didn't have the time. Like I said, bro, my only regret is Bro, you got to understand, when they interviewed me, I laid everything out for them. I made it crystal clear. I had a game plan, how we were going to get this done. I laid it everything out. When I started working, that's exactly what we were doing. And my only regret is we never got to see that through. But that was totally out of my hands. I mean, that had nothing to do with freaking me. That was the politics of wrestling. So my only regret would have been, man, I wish we would have had that year. I wish we would have seen where we were after that year, but we'll just never know.
Vince, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Give a shout out to your podcast, obviously, let everybody know where we can find it.
Yeah, guys, also too, I believe in letting everybody sample what I do. So right now, if you go to patreon.com/Russo TWC, you can get a free week of Russo's brand. So you could sample it, see if you like it. If you like it, bro, and you want to subscribe, we've got tiers as low as $3 a month, bro, 75 cents a week. So just go to patreon.com/Russo TWC and take advantage of the free week.
Vince, thank you ever so much again. I'll give a proper goodbye in a moment while we wrap this show up here today. Guys, thank you so much for watching today. One unbelievable interview. Vince Russo has been a massive part of my fandom within wrestling. Wow, since I was a kid. It's unbelievable to put into words, kind of. I was a little bit starstruck, to be honest. I'm not going to lie, because, he meant so much to me when I was getting into wrestling, and my enjoyment for so many years with WCW, WWF, obviously, and later on TNA as well. So I can't thank him enough for joining us today. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Leave a comment down below. Like and subscribe, as always. It always helps the algorithm. Check out that Russo podcast as well. We'll put a link as well down below. But as always, guys, look after each other, and we'll see you guys soon. Bye, guys.